Yo everyone, hey guys, it's Old Man G here, back again with another video for Red Devil Studio. And today we're going to be talking about what I think, well, these are basically my Premier League final standing predictions for the upcoming 2021 season. But before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, please remember to like, share and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, United X, and smash the notification button for latest Manchester United news. This will be premiering tomorrow. This is pre-recorded, but sort of get in the chat. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with will you agree with the predictions? Get involved. So without further ado, basically, let's sort of get into it. Obviously, there might be some surprises. Maybe some people might disagree or not disagree. We'll see what happens. But yeah, here are my, at least what I think are my Premier League predictions for the upcoming season. And I'm going to start with going in ascending order. So 20th, West Brom. 20th, West Brom. Personally, for me, and why I have them finishing bottom is simply for the fact that they haven't bought anyone, or they haven't bought anyone at least that seems to be significant or strong enough to be able to stay in the Premier League. The likes of Villa and even to some extent West Ham have strengthened, but with West Brom, to be honest, especially with how with the whole Moore being sacked, etc., they've been good to get up. But I just think to stay in the Premier League these times, you have to actually strengthen, and I haven't seen that from West Brom. So that's why I think they're going to finish bottom and go basically right back down to the Championship. On a similar theme, 19th, Fulham. Fulham, again, I think they have a slightly stronger squad. They weren't, to be fair. I mean, it depends, because last time Fulham were up, they spent loads of money, and despite all the money they spent, not wisely, they still went back down. This time they're not spending any. Maybe they're just trusting the manager, and I may be putting them too low down. But again, I just feel that they haven't strengthened enough, and I just think that, like West Brom, they'll just go back down. Now, this next one might be a surprise to some people. West Ham. I generally think that this is going to be the year that West Ham will go down, especially if Mikel Antonio is injured for most of the season. He's a solid player. He's a good player for them. But I just think that West Ham, they're in crisis right now. I mean, David Moyes is threatening to leave. They have spent a fair bit of money, and I think they have a good enough squad. But I think West Ham's problems go deeper than just the manager and the players. I think there is a total capitulation from top to bottom, from the chairman all the way to the clubs. And I think that inevitably, as you saw with Sunderland Football Club years back, I think that will take its toll on West Ham. And I think that they will be relegated alongside the other two, mostly because of just poor management and failing to. I mean, to be honest, they were pretty much teetering around relegation last season, but for the fact that I think with Mikel Antonio, they picked up a bit of form in the last 5 games and they survived. But bearing in mind they spent a lot of money at the beginning of the season, the fact that they were battling relegation with 3 or 4 games left to spare just shows you. Next, sorry, it's back. Aston Villa 17th. The reality is that I think this will be safe based on the fact, and it's purely just based on the fact that I think those 3 teams that I mentioned are in a worse situation this season. But that doesn't mean I think Villa are going to have a successful season. Yes, they managed to keep a hold of Jack Grealish, but and they celebrated their stay as a success. But the fact of the matter is, it took them to the last day, and they got a bit lucky with that dodgy goal that should have been a goal against Sheffield United. So really, there was just nothing that I saw with Villa that would convince me otherwise. Unless they get like a significant managerial shift and a change in philosophy, I just don't really see them changing much. I really don't. It just looks, like I said, I don't know. It just, yeah. I'd be very, very surprised if Villa got. I don't think they'll be relegated, and maybe they might get a bit higher than this. But for me, I'm staying with 17th. Next is Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, I think, again, will be one of those flirting with relegation, but will probably be fine. Zaha still at the club for now, and this obviously the transfer window. This is obviously pre-transfer window closing October, so a lot of things could change in the next month depending on transfers, etc. So obviously bear that in mind. But with Zaha and with the they have, I think that while I think they will struggle, and to be honest, Crystal Palace's form going into last couple of games was awful. They were losing games left, right, and centre. But to be honest, that's how Crystal Palace have been the last couple of seasons. They tend to start okay-ish. Then in the midpoint of the season, they tend to pick up some good points. And then when they're effectively safe, they just basically go on holiday and lose most of the remaining games. That's how they've been for the last few seasons or so. So I think it'll be more of this the same, and they'll be 16th. Next off, Brighton 15th. I think I was going to put Brighton a bit lower, potentially teetering, but they're a funny one, Brighton. You know, the way they play, I think they'll be good enough to be able to get enough points. Again, a lot of these teams from probably 14, I think it's just because I thought that teams that are lower than them are worse. It could be a toss-up between them and Crystal Palace, but I just think that Brighton's a bit more quality. Obviously, Mopai has won it, as it were. I think this season, with their manager having a bit more Premier League experience, I think that they will push on a bit. I'm not saying it'll be easy for them, but I just think that compared to likes of Fulham and West Brom, for example, I think they'll be fine with 15th. Next, Burnley 14th. I mean, there's nothing more to say here, really. I mean, Burnley. I don't think Burnley are going to go down this season. Their football is interesting, but they're tough to beat. They've always been tough to beat, often at home at Turf Moor. They often do go, and much like with Crystal Palace, they often go for periods where they have like a completely bad run. But then, you know, they start picking up points, especially towards the end of the season, the last 10 games when it counts. They just find a way of grinding out results, and sometimes to stay in the Premier League, you just have to grind out results. They've got enough. Nick Pope is obviously a very solid keeper, and he's still there with them. So I think that, again, will make the difference because they have a very good goalkeeper, Nick Pope. They've got decent forwards up front. So I think Burnley 14th. Right. Next up, Leeds. Now, to be honest, Leeds are probably the most exciting. I think there'll be a lot of people, and maybe and stay tuned for our Premier League joint show tomorrow. But there'll be a lot of people that will think, a lot of Leeds fans in particular. No hate to you guys, Leeds, but a lot of you guys that actually will think that that Leeds will be higher up. I'm not sure about that. I do think that Bielsa, coach, is a very good coach, and I'm very interested to see how he, especially the first game against Liverpool, I'm interested to see how he will tactically be able to, you know, work out his team. I think that it'll be interesting to see how his relationship with the board is, because he's a manager that's known to leave quite quickly. But again, obviously they signed the Rodrigo guy from Valencia, but I think he only scored like 4 or 5 goals in La Liga last season. That's their statement signing. So I don't think Leeds will go back down. And like I said, I put them above because there's always got to be one team that's got a promoted team that's got to do better than the rest. I think Leeds are that team. But I just don't think that they're going to certainly be challenged. I'd be very surprised if they were going to be challenging for Europe this season. If they do, then hats off to Bielsa, to be quite honest. Newcastle. Newcastle. I actually put Newcastle a bit higher up, 12th. I still think that there's still going to be this kind of mid-table, partly because, with all the respect to Steve Bruce, I don't think he's that kind of elite European manager yet, but I think they'll be comfortably mid-table this season because I think they've got the quality in Jamal Lewis, in Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser. They might even potentially break the top 10. It's just I think that there are a few teams above them that I think have strengthened a bit better, and their form towards the end of last season in terms of where they're playing was better. So Newcastle, I think, I don't think they're going to struggle, and I think they'll be comfortably mid-table in 12th. Moving on next to Sheffield United. Now, I think this is a team that I think is going. I don't think they're going to fall because they've got the quality. You know, they've got the only thing. The reason why I think Sheffield United are going to drop, I don't think they're going to drop too far down. It could be a toss between them and Newcastle in the 11th and 12th position. But I think that Henderson not being there is going to be a help because he was very good for last season. The defense is still the same. The thing I noticed about Sheffield United going to lockdown, especially because there's going to be a lot more games crammed into such a short period of time, is their lack of squad depth. And the lack of squad depth really harms Sheffield United and their European chances. And I think that's going to be the same case again this season. Like I said, Chris Wilder's a good coach. I think he organised them well. I think they will get enough points. I don't think they'll be in the relegation battle. But I don't think they're going to be reaching the soared heights of 5th and 7th, etc. I think they will suffer this season just due to lack of squad depth. And 11th, I think, is reasonable. Moving on, Southampton. Now, I think so. They've strengthened a bit. But I think the thing with Southampton, again, I'm going based on the end of last season. Southampton finished really, really strong, very, very strong. They seem to have, with Russell Houghton, they seem to have an identity of how they wanted to play. They were causing big teams problems. Obviously, they drew against United, beat City. They finished the season well, and it looks like the manager seems to kind of have a philosophy and understanding of these players now. And I think that with the investment, or with the right investment, I think Southampton can at least be solidly mid-table. Like I said, I think there are maybe other better teams, but I don't think they'll be challenging for Europe. But mid-table, I think, is fine. Now, Everton. Interesting. This is where we get into last rights. Everton have spent a lot of money again this transfer window, like the previous one. They've got James Rodriguez, they bought Decore, Allen. You know, they have, you know, that's essentially 3 midfielders, you know, one holding, you know, possibly holding defensive and attacking. You know, they're going for it. They're wanting to push for Europe, and this is their chance. And it will be make or break based on James, but this is going to be Carlo Ancelotti's greatest challenge, I think, to make Everton competitive, because I just can't remember the last time that Everton were. And they've had so many managers and they've spent so much money, and yet they've still not been able to get, I don't know whether it's a curse, a hex or something, I don't get it. But I just feel that you're just going to have the same situation you had when they got Andre Gomez and Eriksson, sorry, not Eriksson, Sigurdsson, the guy from Juventus, I've forgotten his name now. You know, I just think they just lack a philosophy, or they just lack it. Just whatever manager they have, they just seem to struggle. And even though they've signed those quality players, I just don't see them closing that gap. I don't see it. And if they do, I think it'll be a very it'll be a surprise. But we'll see what happens. I could be absolutely wrong. But again, I think that there are teams that are better than them, just organizationally and what have you, because some of these new signings have to gel. Leicester City. So again, this could be a toss-up between Everton and Leicester to 8th or 9th, because Leicester City, again, much like Sheffield, struggled with squad depth, and their form, essentially from January, was awful. Was so bad. They looked tired. They had injuries, etc. But what I would say about Leicester is that, again, their first starting 11 is very good. Jamie Vardy is starting the age, and I think they do have to kind of rely more on Kelechi and potentially sign up forward. But, you know, they do have a good sort of Castle Michael, solid, Soyuncu. They've lost Chilwell, but I think they've got a solid, decent left back. Maddison is obviously there, and Didi's there. So they have a solid team. And I just think Brendan Rodgers needs to learn how to not bottle. And they should be okay. You know, they should be okay, you know. So I don't think that they will, again, be getting close to Europe. But I do think that, yeah, I do think that 8th, I think, is 8th is reasonable. 8th is definitely reasonable. They are in the Europa League, so that is obviously an option. And you know, if they go all out for that, then also that's the Champions League entry. You know, hopefully an English team wins it this time. 7th, Wolves. Wolves, I think, missed out on Europa League because they're inconsistent. I do think that if they want to get closer, I think that Nuno has to sort of know when to, you know, that Europa League semi-final, was it a quarter-final, I was so disappointed, so defensive, so incredibly defensive, you know, against Sevilla. They could have beaten Sevilla easily, to be honest. Well, Jimenez missed the penalty. You know, if they'd scored that, who knows what would have happened from a semi-final point of view. So, but at the end of the day, Wolves have got the quality. Jimenez, you know, Neto, Traore, you know, they're solid coach and manager, their keeper. They've got a good squad, and they've reinforced as well. I just think the reason why I don't see Wolves, and obviously 7th is the Europa League position, pending obviously trophies and stuff. 5th, 6th, 7th, I think it is. Yeah, 5th, 6th, 7th, pending trophies. But I just need to see evidence, which I haven't seen yet, of Nuno evolving. He's almost become like a Diego Simeone, where, you know, against big teams, if it's under pressure, defend deep, 11 men behind the ball, and then go out. Like, he needs to evolve and needs to change that, because he has the players to do that. And I think he needs to grow out of that if he's even going to consider competing for top 4. Arsenal. Yes, Aubameyang potential sign new contract, although it's still not been announced. Yes, it was Pepe's first year. Yes, they're potentially they've signed Gabriel. Selba's going to play. Yes, possibly Partey might join. We don't know. And yes, they beat City, beat Liverpool, they've got silverware. Yes, agree. However, I just think with Arsenal, it's the consistency. It's the consistency. They don't have the consistency, and over a 38-game season, you have to be able to be consistent. And the problem I saw with Arsenal last season, which I think some of the other teams above had it, but not as much as Arsenal, with the exception of the team coming next, is that they were just dropping points against a lot of the smaller teams. They really were, you know. You beat Liverpool, great. At home, awesome, great. And then you lose to Sevilla the next week, you know. So that for me is the thing. Arteta, for me, Arsenal's best chances again is Europa League again, to get to Champions League, because I just don't see them getting to top 4 again this season. Aubameyang is really good, but sometimes, and many times this season, he had off days, and I just don't see them. Qualifying for the Champions League, getting to the top 4 this season. Spurs 5th. This is controversial because it could be Spurs, Arsenal, or 6th. But the reason why I think Spurs, it's Mourinho. It's the Mourinho effect. It's the second season Mourinho effect, and Mourinho always often tends to do better in his second season in charge. I mean, like with us, he won was it the second season or his first season? In first season, he Europa League and League Cup. Yeah, Europa League and League Cup. But then the second season, he finished. He got second place. So I do think that you know, Tottenham are going to get a buzz from this season. I still don't think it'll be enough to get into top 4, but I feel like Jose will focus more on Europa League and win that. But I do think that he'll make Tottenham at least a bit more competitive this season, because it's Jose, and like I say, it's his second season, and he's got the experience. Now, 4th, Chelsea. Yes, they've signed Werner. Yes, they've signed Havertz. Yes, they've signed Ziyech. Yes, they've signed Thiago Silva. Yes, they've signed Shaw. Yes, they're potentially signing Mendy. To all intents and purposes, they should be winning a title. But the big thing for me, my big question mark is, 1 is Lampard's strategy, his tactics, but 2, signing 6, 7 players and getting them all to gel, be familiar, is going to take time. And with games coming thick and fast, I think that they might struggle a bit. The only reason I see them top 5 as the others, because again, they'll have the squad depth. you know, they have the squad depth in comparison to a lot of the other teams, and that's why I think that they will at least get fourth. They could be higher, but I just think some of the players, the inexperience, the additional fact that I still don't think they've sorted out their back line. Yes, they signed Thiago Silva, but he's 36. Will he be able to do a 38-game season in the league? Aspilicueta for me is done, especially if you run at him with pace. Rudiger or Zuma are suspect. Chilwell is suspect defensively, in my opinion, although he's good going forward. Mendy, we don't know about him as a keeper. So there's still question marks, to be honest, over Chelsea's back five. Although the rest of the team, fair enough. I think their midfield is strong enough, unfortunately, but they conceded 55 goals, 8 goals in the league last season. That's not good enough, even with a good front three. Now it comes. Manchester United, yes. At the end of the day, yes, it's the Manchester United fan. Yes, I'm biased, etc. Yes, I know I am. I know I am. But United have one of the best currently right now forms in the league. We've been undefeated in the Premier League since January. Yes, that doesn't include cup ones. We've essentially since January only lost 2 games, and that was one against Sevilla in a semi-final, and obviously against Chelsea in the cup final. So United's league form has been ridiculously good, and I think that we can take that, especially with the fact that we now have we're going to have Bruno and Pogba from the beginning. We didn't have that at the beginning of the season, although Pogba did play. You got Van der Beek, obviously, as additional midfielder to give us something different. Hopefully they'll get additional reinforcements. But for me, United have at least helped to improve that midfield creativity, which, you know, we have options now. And the midfield of United is the engine room. It's if we, you know, if our midfield is creative, our midfield clicks and delivers to our front three, we'll score plenty of goals. Do I think it's enough to win a title? I don't think so. But I think it's enough for us to maintain a solid third and to go deep in a competition. Right, second and first. So second and first, and I begrudge doing this, but I think that this is what I think is going to happen. This is what I think is going to happen. City, I think are going to come second again, and again, especially if they sign Koulibaly, who's going to strengthen their defense. Although I don't think that this is prime Koulibaly. But the big thing is consistency. Yes, City lost games, but they were second for a reason. And I think this is what people don't seem to understand, is that most of the Premier League teams, especially the traditional top 6 teams, were just not consistent last season. And they were a good 30+ points away from Liverpool. And that's because of their inconsistency. And City were the second most consistent team in the league. So yes, they lost 8 games, but over 30, they were still more consistent than other teams. And I think that'll be the case this season. And they had a weaker squad. So with a stronger squad of Koulibaly, the Fernand Torres guy, they will be stronger. Aguero will probably be back fit to give them a bit of depth up front. But unfortunately, Liverpool, I think, might retain the title. And I hate saying that. I really don't want to say that. It's awful. It's not nice. I really don't want them to do it. And it's hard. And maybe they won't. And I hope they don't. I hope this prediction is wrong. But I have a feeling they will. Because they've got the experience now. Their starting 11 is still very good. And even if they weren't motivated, they were still good 30+ points ahead, you know, of most teams. So people have to climb those points. Last season before that, sorry, Liverpool only, I think, a point behind City. So before City got their 100 and Centurion thing, Liverpool were quite a bit away. Then they narrowed it to 1 point, and then they beat them and went the other way, went 30 points. So it's up to other teams to close the gap on Liverpool. Liverpool's consistent quality is there that even if they lose more games, they're still going to be ahead of most of the pack. And that shows because, like I said, it's not about beating City and United all the time. It's about going to these smaller clubs, the remaining, you know, 14, 15 teams, and doing the number on them, both home and away. And that's what Liverpool are doing. And as long as likes of Van Dijk and Alisson Mane, Trent are fit, they're going to be a form. They're going to be difficult, you know. So unfortunately, as much as I really hate to admit it, I think Liverpool are going to retain the title. It is what it is. Ooh, so I'll just get back to not that. There we go. Okay, so yeah, guys. Those are my predictions. Those are my Premier League 2021 predictions. I will go back to this at the end of the season to see how many I got right. Make sure that you leave a like on the video. Remember to subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that do you agree with these predictions? Who do you think should be higher? Should we be lower? Should United be higher or lower? Which teams do you think are going to be relegated, etc.? Let me know in the comments. Remember to like. Otherwise, make sure you share, subscribe if you're new, smash that notification button for the latest Manchester United and football-related news. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers.